welcome to summer. Hey, here we are. In the midst of it. Right? This is the time of year where there's a little more space in our day, a little longer day, a little more relaxed, hopefully a little less busy, a little less scheduled. We have more time and space to have fun, more time and space to maybe contemplate, to think a little deeper, and maybe even to take our spiritual practice a little bit deeper. So Reverend Rosemary and I thought it appropriate to begin our summer series, our summer Sunday morning series, and this one we're calling Living a Wholehearted Life. Living a Wholehearted Life. And we'll be drawing inspiration from a couple of sources. One is the Gifts of Imperfection, this book by Brené Brown. I know many of you know her from her YouTube videos where she talks about vulnerability and her research on shame, right? She is now Oprah's favorite person. You see her on her Super Soul Sunday series all the time. She is a psychologist and a researcher, so her focus is personal growth and definitely about embracing your imperfections. And it really has the ability to be profoundly life-changing in terms of our perception of ourselves and our relationship to others. And then when I speak, I will be also drawing on this book that we are studying in our summer book series, book study group, and that is Prayers of the Cosmos by Neil Douglas-Klotz, who, in case you're not familiar, is an Aramaic scholar. And he has reinterpreted the Lord's Prayer and the Beatitudes back to the original language that Jesus spoke, which was Aramaic. It is deeply spiritual and really has the ability to open us to a more mystical understanding, a more mystical experience. And then the both of us will be weaving together a little bit Charles Fillmore, of course. The Fillmores are the founders of Unity, pioneers of New Thought, really. And New Thought, when people ask me these days, what's New Thought? Here's my current definition. It changes all the time, but my current definition is that it's this beautiful melding together of positive psychology, personal growth, and deep spirituality. So feel free to use that one when people ask you, what's New Thought? You're going to New Thought Church? What's New Thought? It's kind of what it is. So we thought that all of these voices, together with ours, will present a more holistic approach to wholehearted living. Okay, so before we embark on this journey, the spiritual journey, this journey of self-exploration, we always want to remember to love ourselves through the process, to be kind to ourselves. None of this, oh, gee, I'm doing that, or God, I've got a long way to grow. No beating yourself up. This is about really acknowledging how far you have come, and that the path that you've been on so far has been absolutely perfect. And then just opening to allow the process. Brené Brown says, wholeheartedness is as much about embracing our tenderness and vulnerability as it is about developing knowledge and claiming power. So wholehearted living is a process, it's a journey, an exciting journey. It's not a destination. We're not going to get it perfect. It's nowhere to be. It's more about learning to engage in our lives from a place of worthiness. That we're worthy now. We're worthy now, even when we're afraid, even when we forget spiritual principle, even when we're stressed and we react from our ego. even then, it's really about loving and accepting ourselves exactly as we are now. And from that place, just kind of gently opening for more of our authentic self, more of that inner Christ presence to emerge. So, let's begin, shall we? So, a good place, I think, to start is where Brené Brown says the importance, is talking about the importance of embracing what she calls the 3 C's, and that is courage, compassion, and connection. Courage, compassion, and connection. So we're going to look at each of those, a little in detail. So let's take courage. Now, today, I think we tend to think of courage as synonymous with being heroic. But that's actually, the original meaning of courage is really quite different. It comes from the Latin word for heart, which is cor, C-O-R. So Brené really is inferring that the original meaning of courage, really, it just referred to the strength it takes to come from our heart, to speak from our heart. And both Brené Brown and Douglas-Klotz make an effort to bring us back to the original meaning of things, and break down the words to kind of get at the heart of the matter. In Douglas-Klotz's books, he brings us back to the original language that Jesus spoke, which was Aramaic. The people in that area of the world at that time spoke Aramaic, not Greek, which is the language it was written down in years after Jesus' time. So you see how it can then begin to be open to a lot of misinterpretation, particularly because he says that the Greek culture was completely different than that Middle Eastern culture. The Greeks had a completely different orientation. They saw a definite distinction between spirit and matter. They saw a separation between God and nature. They saw a separation between everyone from each other. Whereas those who spoke Aramaic came from an orientation of oneness. Spirit and matter were just 2 possibilities of the same thing. And they saw that nature is God in expression, and that we're all connected to each other by the breath. By the breath, we're connected to each other and to the whole power in the universe. It all starts with breath, and we're all connected to it by the breath. That's how they saw it. So getting back to the original language and the original culture kind of gives us a whole different understanding of what Jesus was telling us. And those Aramaic words, he says in the book, are full, they're rich with different meanings. They give them many different possibilities of things. Like, for example, the word for heart is lebhan, which he says carries a sense of expansion plus generative power, vitality, desire, affection, courage, and audacity all rolled into one. All of those things rolled into one. Very, different possibilities depending upon the context that it's used. So looking at the root word of things and the original meaning can open us to a deeper understanding of it. So it all points us to this idea that courage is located in our heart. In our heart. And we become courageous when we center in our heart, not our head. The head, the voices in our head can talk us out of all kinds of stuff that would otherwise be a good move for us. Say, for instance, you had this idea of something that would be a real expansion for you, a real wonderful, joyous thing for you, maybe a blessing to others, even though it's probably outside of your comfort zone. That comes from a heart. That comes from that love, not the voices in the head that can very quickly give you a million reasons why it's not the right time, it's not the right thing, you're not ready, it's not good enough, it's not enough of whatever. So we just want to recenter our awareness back into our heart. Take a moment and breathe from our heart. Feel the divine presence there. And then move forward from that place. That's courage. That and remembering this really incredible thing that Charles Fillmore, how he describes courage as the realization that the Almighty God of the universe is a spiritual presence which constantly is striving to express in and through us, and to fill us with new courage and a fearlessness that is beyond description. It's so powerful, isn't it? And by the way, that quote and some of the others that I'll be mentioning are in your handout in the program, so you can take that and look at it a few times. Maybe just put it up on your wall, just so you can see it a few times. Really want to connect with that. From Brené's perspective, courage is about the ability to be honest about our feelings and our experiences and to feel vulnerable in the process. And I tell you, I don't know if any of you, but I keep thinking about that image that Reverend Rosemary gave us last week, that metaphor that she used when she wanted to stuff all of her unwanted feelings, in this little refrigerator and then slam down the lid and sit on the lid, Don't let any of them out. Which caused a great deal of tension, right? It blocked that whole energetic flow of life. It's very funny. And until she, was able to face that and, open to the divine guidance of spirit and all of that, then it shifted, right, miraculously, and there's even more miracles that happened there that I think she's going to share with us next week. Yeah. So, connecting with courage, activating that courage in our heart center helps us to face those feelings, to face them, to be honest about them. And here's the thing, though. We don't necessarily want to share those with just anyone. That invites in judgment and all kinds of unwanted advice. Brené Brown is very clear about you really want to kind of share that stuff with people, she says, who have earned the right to hear it. Earn the right to hear it, who have proven that they can be loving and accepting of you and you feel safe being vulnerable and they're compassionate. And those friends, they're few and far between, right? So it's really worthwhile to nurture those relationships. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to compassion. So on one level, we understand compassion to be the ability to open our hearts, to feel our humanity, to be loving and accepting, and to be lovingly present with someone while they're suffering, or with ourselves. It's truly about loving and accepting others and ourselves, compassionately, being fully present. And on another level, compassion, the word compassion, she tells us, is there's two Latin words that combine together, pati and cum, which mean to suffer with, which is not exactly the first thing you want to do with people. Here, I want to suffer with you. Yay, let's go suffer. Really, when you think about it, the first instinct we usually have, if we're perfectly honest, is to protect ourselves, right? Either to protect ourselves or to rush in and try to fix it somehow. Think back on some of your when people are suffering, some of your early responses, initial responses, it's very human to want to protect ourselves or to try to fix it. For me, do that. But the point is to become aware, non-judgmentally, compassionately, just kind of become aware of that thing. And it doesn't mean you have to take on other people's suffering. It's not like that. There is a way to be open and loving and accepting and empathetic and be lovingly present with someone without taking on their suffering. Or without, trying to get in there and fix it. I mean, there's something so incredibly healing about just being lovingly present. Non-judgmentally, lovingly present with someone. That is so healing. And also, don't be afraid to set boundaries. Brené does talk a lot about that. She doesn't see any difference between being compassionate and setting boundaries. She doesn't see a conflict. That's the word I was looking for. Between those two things. We need to set boundaries and hold people accountable. So those things kind of go together, and she actually goes into detail about that in that chapter. So it's worthwhile reading. All right. So, also, I feel personally that a good thing sometimes to do is just to silently, in our own hearts, in our own selves, just silently kind of see that person who is suffering, just sort of visualize the release, the healing, the comfort that they're, wanting, kind of just on the other side of the suffering. It's just on the other side. And just visualize kind of seeing them move in that direction when they're ready. The beautiful beatitude, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted, which is beautiful in itself. And Douglas-Klotz gives us another possible Aramaic translation, which is, blessed are those in emotional turmoil, for they shall be united inside by love. They shall be united inside by love. So our prayer can be to really be with that, to really envision that love that heals growing inside of them. That's how we can be a blessing. All right, so now on to connection, which Brené defines as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen and heard and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. Is that beautiful? Sounds like an ideal relationship. And I'm sure most of our really important, enduring relationships have this at their core. Sometimes we forget, so it's a good vision to have in mind, something to work for. And we talk about connection here quite a bit. In fact, that's one of our mission statements. We connect in our hearts with others. It's that second statement. And spiritually speaking, that's about identifying that the heart center within us is the place where the infinite, universal, divine comes into expression as us. And when we connect with that heart center, when we share of our love from there, when we identify it in someone else, in anyone else, that's connecting from our heart to theirs. It's really the true meaning of namaste, isn't it? That divine heart center in me recognizes the divine heart center in you and honors that. That's really what that's about. And it seems these days that connection, that humanity seems to be crying out for it. It's a basic human necessity. We all want connection, and yet it seems like the thing that is missing for a lot of people. And I don't know if it's because, we're confusing connecting on social media with actually connecting. How many of your Facebook friends, will give you the time to, and the space to listen and make you feel valued, and you feel strength and sustenance from that relationship. Maybe you're close friends and family. But this world seems to be sort of crying out for that. We see this divide on both sides of the political spectrum, whether it's here in the U.S. or in Britain or in other places in Europe. There's this ideological divide. And over here, there are voices that want to build a wall, keep other people out, other people who feel different than they. And then over on this side, there are people who want, who believe, who desire to build a bridge to connect, because we realize that we are all the same essentially. Isn't that one of Hillary's actual, campaign slogans? But, we really want to amplify that voice, because this voice over here that wants to build the wall, boy, that's getting loud. It's too loud. And the thing is, what we see projected out in the world is always just a reflection of what's going on inside of us. All of us. So at any moment, we want to stop and ask ourselves, am I creating a wall in my heart? Or am I creating a bridge? Am I being judgmental of someone? Or am I seeing that person is God in expression? Am I in resistance? Or am I open and loving? We get this piece figured out for all of us, and we will see that played out in our world. And there will be a healing so enormous it will shift everything. And it starts inside us. Wholehearted living starts inside of us right now, this moment. So this is what we're going to be exploring over the next several weeks, every Sunday. You want to be here and participate in this, to take this journey together, to participate in the co-creation of this. Right? Namaste.